Good evening. I am your host, Miss TML. You are now tuned in. Real Talk with TML. We have a very, very, very special guest with me tonight. He goes by Wally, also known as Mr. Peters, also known as the Funky Professor. Um, I am. I don't even know how to introduce you because you've been so influential in my life for so long. Um, Being a mentor, being a great, friend, a person who I can come to that gives me the knowledge and the wisdom and just opened up my mind and my, artistry in regards to music. So I'm excited because again, this is our first time ever doing this, having a conversation with you directly in regards to, your artistry and the things like that. But you've been a big influence on this journey with me. And it's just so great to finally bring you to the forefront and have you on the podcast and have you on the show because you've been a big support as well as someone who's contributed to giving me, wisdom and giving me ideas and giving me resources and things like that. So I just want to thank you. And, always I am forever grateful and always, nothing but admiration and just great respect for you and who
Thank
you are.
you. Wow, thank you. And I have to say, in return, I am so proud of who you've grown into and the things you're doing. So,
Thank you.
and the things I've learned from you, things I've learned from watching you and how you do the things you do. So thank you back.
It's like I say, it's always been my idea to pay homage and give praises to the people that have been influential in my life. And I just think that you are a person that I want to share with the world. I want people to know like your mind and your theories and your thoughts and just the way you've enlightened me about this life and this world. So
All
it's
right.
it's so many things, like and then having your son being on this podcast from the first season to now season 5, and
Mhm.
watching him grow and just him becoming somewhat so much like your clone that it's scary.
But very, very much his
But
own.
very much his own. He's a
There,
modern day.
there are tons of things I look at and I'm like, where did that come from? And so now he took what he just like you, he took what he learned from me and ran with it and built it into his own thing. So
Yeah. And I mean, and he does a great job of doing that. And I think still being himself, and you've created a great human being. Let me say
thank
that.
you.
That's important to, recognize, because again, it's hard as a, as a man, to raise a man, or a boy into a man. So,
Mhm.
and just seeing him at 21 from seeing him at 8 years old, I'm like, sick. Like, what happened? Like, you just grew up so fast. So
Oh
what's
yeah.
that been like? Because now you guys are band members. Um,
Oh yeah.
and
Well,
yeah, you've created Wamptronica. So let's talk
ye-
about that.
well, I guess I should mention because it's funny because one of the pictures you have up is actually the Groovalados,
Okay.
and that was really Zig's first band experience. When he was 13, he came with us to the Gathering of Nations powwow, and that's when he actually became full-fledged member of the band as the percussionist because he'd been studying drums with Eddie Ray Johnson, the late great Eddie Ray Johnson, the
Right.
drummer, and had been playing percussion next to him and adding his own flavor to the groove from the age of 13 on. And then when Eddie Ray transitioned, stepped right into the role of drummer.
Yeah.
And, it was almost like seamless.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say it was seamless because the Groovalados are, the thing with bands, and I've always said this: bands are a philosophy. It's not the players; it's the actual core mission of the band.
Mm-hmm.
Groovalados are a soul funk band, and it's a live energy soul funk band. It's an in the room, in your face kind of thing. We're actually like, I could guess you could almost say we're like disciples of Parliament Funkadelic.
Right.
We're sort of like we take that energy and we
Yeah.
run with energy. It was kind of funny because one there was an article written about the Groovalados where they said we're like the illegitimate child of the Grateful Dead and the Wu-Tang Clan.
Now that's a combo. Grateful Dead and the Wu-Tang Clan. That's a combo.
It is, but and then when the person elaborated, they said it's because they'll hear like a Groovalado song and it's 3 minutes. They hear the record and then they come to the show and the song will go for about 20 minutes and you don't even notice because we've gone into like so many different styles and variations and combos with it, and a lot of it is because of, and this goes back to the beginning, you watch the dance floor and you watch how people react and respond, and it's like, okay, they're ready for a Latin groove.
Yeah.
So, oh, 5, 6, 7, 8, that kind of thing. Wamptronica is an outgrowth of the Groovalados, but it's it's a funny thing because like the Groovalados, and this is a common thing that everybody who's come through the band, because it's goes back to Eddie Ray, comes up to Zig and to Alphonse 3, our bass player, and to Bishop the Shadow Man, who's one of the vocalists with the Groovalados. All of us are products of the public school music programs.
Right.
We're all out of the music, we're all out of the jazz chorus, the jazz band, and so that's sort of an interesting core that we come out of musically, and that we bring into the sound and the style. Now, the other little funny thing is all of us were sort of like underground dance music fanatics. Eddie Ray, when he was younger, was a DJ, playing a lot of dance music.
Mm-hmm.
Zig grew into becoming a DJ. In fact, here's an interesting thing. Zig's the one who taught me how to spin.
Really?
Yeah, I was doing my stuff thing as a musician and producer, but he was the one who then taught me how to mix and remix and do it all with
I
when
was
I
wondering that too,
use
because I
controllers.
never heard you really talk about DJing or anything like that. So when I've recently seen you on the turntables and stuff, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, where'd that come from? He must have pulled that out somewhere. Like, and to find out that Zig taught you, like, because I said that to him. I said, when the student becomes the teacher and he is becoming the teacher, and
Oh
you've
yeah,
always been the teacher, you know?
oh yeah.
So how's that feel?
All teachers are students.
Yeah, absolutely. You told me that too.
Yeah. So, it's again, I pay attention to what everybody around me is doing. I watch what you're doing. I watch what Zig's doing.
Yeah.
It's, you
And
know,
you've
it,
been able to keep up with that, the trends and things like that. And I admire you for that because one of my biggest fears was getting, too stuck in the past and not being able to evolve as far as this music journey because music is a vast changing vessel. Um and you've been able to do that, Mr. Peters. So kudos to you because it ain't easy.
thank you so much. A lot of it is because a lot of the thing about trends are
Mhm.
illusions. They're
Mhm.
industry created illusions. If you strip things down to their core, things haven't changed at all.
Right.
People are here talking about, you don't make any money from Spotify, you don't make any money from streaming. Well, that just means that we're back to the early 1900s when artists didn't make any money from their record. They went in the studio and they made a record, and the record would go out and the label would make all the money, and that's just what it was. And the thing was, you made a record because if you had a record out, this meant you were going to get gigs.
Mhm.
Because it's like if your record's in the jukeboxes or if your record's playing
You can get
on the
booked.
radio, it's like the bars and the clubs that all dependent on live music were the ones who are going to be like, oh, I need to get that guy in here. I need to get her in here. And, this is what Ma Rainey was doing. This is what all of those folks were doing. Artists didn't start to make money from records probably until I would say the late 40s, early 50s.
Wow.
Because a lot of people don't realize records were meant to be disposable. That's why they were put on the medium that they were. The idea was, well, let's start with the original major record companies all started out as furniture companies.
Mhm.
Columbia was a furniture company. RCA Victor was a furniture company, and they made turntables. And then by making turntables, okay, so now we got to make stuff for people to play on the turntables. And
Hmm.
they would stop being furniture companies and then began to focus on
Making.
what do you play on the turntables. And you think about how Columbia then becomes part of CBS, and then CBS gets bought out by Sony. But what did Sony make? Sony made CD players.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons Sony bought CBS was to phase out vinyl records to make people then buy CDs.
Wow.
So, these are the things people don't realize that, sometimes people make these moves and it completely goes against their interest.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
But
that's
I'm sorry, go ahead.
that.
No, I was just going to say the interesting thing also is, and this is something I've always said to you, the big difference and the big divide between the music business and the music industry.
Mhm.
The industry is about disposable consumption.
Mhm.
The business is about bridging the difference between art and commerce.
Mhm.
And when you look at it that way, that's what then begins to remove the concept of trends, removes the whole concept of the concept of trends and trying to keep up with trends as opposed to looking at what are the basics.
Yeah.
It's
Because then I
about
think you were very, um you were very confident and sure. And, anytime that we came up, to talk about brainstorming and different, ways that you were going to pursue the Groovalatos and, just different things that you had in regards to creative directing,
Mhm.
and understanding how to keep your image real and how to keep it, authentic. And I think you've been great at that. I think, because again, it was not about following the trends for the Groovalatos. It wasn't about, it was about being natural. It was about being organic, and creating that organic sound. And that was one of the things that you taught me, like I didn't understand the importance of, making your own beat and getting, your own sound and things like that. It was like, oh, I'm just going to hop on this remade beat or, and you don't really understand the business side of that. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Is that you're not going to be able to collect the royalties or anything. You know what I mean? Like this is where now you have to think about I want to have full publishing, full ownership of this project. Uh,
Mhm.
and just understanding that aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? So that, and again, it was just like, you were the one who taught me that. You were like, okay, you like that beat? I'll make that beat for you. You know what I mean? And that for me was like, well, why? What is the difference? You know what I mean? But it's the fact that you don't have full ownership of that beat. Um,
Precisely.
and now the beat becomes yours, and you're able to capitalize both on the art as well as the production.
Mhm.
So
And it gives you a leverage.
gives you leverage. And that,
Yep.
and again, it's like I realized, I don't want to say that people think that the elders and people who've been in this business, and I consider you somebody who's been in the business, who's been at record labels, who, understands the business enough to know that, some deals, all deals are not good deals. You know what I'm saying? And you've walked away from some deals. Um,
Many.
that for me is like, that shows your confidence in yourself, and you knowing your worth and self-value. Um, so how
Also, I'm not about selling my soul.
no.
And, and you can sit down in rooms with people and sometimes realize, yeah, I'm signing more than a 3-year contract. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, I'm good. Yeah, we can bounce.
yeah.
But it's the I don't know. Let's jump into Wamptronica
Okay. So
because
tell me, yeah,
because
about
one of the fun things with this project is the fact that it ties together. Like I said, we're talking about the underground dance music side.
yeah,
One of the well, Wamptronica actually started in 2021, just as COVID began to loosen up. There was a gallery in Mashpee called the Native Arts Gallery, and we started doing underground dance music parties there. So alcohol-free events or bring your own or what have you. But we
mhm,
were doing them out of the art gallery, and since it was the Native Arts Gallery, and at the time everybody involved was Wampanoag, we had Wampanoags and one Apache.
mhm.
So we just started calling it Wamptronica.
Wow. Now,
And
Wamptronica sounds so electric. It sounds like, that electrifying band. What Tronica? I'm trying to think of something else that's named that it
well, it was smashing together the word Wampanoag and electronica
right.
because we do because basically we were playing house music and Afrobeat and a lot of electronic forms, but then we started producing house music. Now we started producing different styles, but how house music sort of developed first, I have to take you back to 1985.
Mhm.
1985, I was in New York City. I was in high school, and I called myself sneaking into the Paradise Garage
Yeah.
and hearing the late great Larry Levan on the turntables. But it wasn't just that; it was also this sound system where the sound just engulfed you.
Wow.
And bear in mind, this is days before I had any involvement with alcohol or controlled substances. But still, yet and still, the sound of that music just was completely captivating.
Mhm.
But what went along with that? I'm talking 1985 New York City.
Mhm.
What went along with that was house music represented, say, well, we didn't call it house music back then. It was being called garage music or underground music or dance music. They just called it that. House got coined by actually one of Larry Levan's mentees, a DJ named Frankie Knuckles, who used to do the lights at the Paradise Garage for Larry Levan. He took the
Mhm.
sound and style to Chicago and started DJing at a club called the Warehouse, and that's how it ended up being called house music
Wow.
because Frankie Knuckles took it to a different level.
Mhm.
But the Paradise Garage and the kinds of clubs that did underground dance music were also safe spaces.
Right.
It was common to get robbed at a hip hop party.
Mhm.
It was common on the way to like the skating rink or whatnot. You had to ditch your weapon in the alley, but remember where you kept it so that when you got out, you could recollect it and get home safely.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, with the good times came stupidity. You didn't get that at the house clubs.
Right.
What you got were people who were there to dance and to
That's right.
sort of escape and vibe out.
That's right.
And so it was a different type of energy. It was a different type of community.
And I remember that, like, because that was like one of the first EDM, and just being like taken over by those type of environments. Like when, and especially in Worcester, for me, that was my
Mm-hmm.
first time really being introduced to house music clubs. Um,
Yeah.
clubs who just really were all about the dance and all about the, you know, the party and having a good time, and you're just jumping around, you know, having a good time. You don't even realize it's the beat, it's the rhythm, it's the essence of the room that night. You know what
Oh
I'm
yeah.
saying? And I think that's what it just it's I don't know, it's electrifying in a way, like you said. Like it's definitely giving you that core rhythm that you want to dance, that you want to party, that you want to feel good. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's what we want to gravitate back to, you know, like that that sound, that music. So what has
Oh
it
yeah.
been like for you? Cuz I know we've talked about it and how, you know, it's been received in regards to recent shows. You said that you have, you know, people coming from all walks of life um
Mm-hmm.
coming to hear
All
you guys
ages.
play, all ages. And I think that's important because there's, you know, I find that Gen Z is very open to like that type of sound now.
Oh
They're
yeah.
more like they want to get back to that. They want to get back to the old school feeling, the 70s disco. You know, that is what I feel like Gen Z is opening up the doors to now, is that chapter of music that we might have lost or forgotten. And I think you guys fit right into that. So
Oh yeah. Well, it's the definite
you
thing
kept saying
of
it though. You kept
oh,
saying it. House music is not gonna die.
it's not going to, because like the funny thing is, you know, in '86 when I graduated high school, I came. That's when I came to Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got up to Boston, found okay, there's a house music community up here,
Yeah.
the underground dance music community. You know, shout out to the things that we don't have anymore. Like there once upon a time was a club called the Loft,
Uh-huh.
and it was the kind of club that like opened at 11 and closed at 6 the next morning. You had in Cambridge Club M, that again didn't start getting going till 10 o'clock at night and didn't close till 5 or 6 the next morning. And a lot of it was because these were no alcohol clubs, so
Right.
you know you didn't have to deal with the ordinance. And then what becomes funny is I go to a house music club now and I'm running into the same people that I was running into when I was 18 and 19.
Yeah.
You know, we're all older, but we're all still out there going to the house club. And, you know, of course, now I'm walking into the house club and I've got Zig with me. And so it's, again, you have this sort of like multi generational tie hitting. But one of the things that we found with Wamptronica now, to make the connection, James Brown went around and bought up radio stations.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found was okay, so we've made records as the Groovalados, we've made records as ZYG 808, we've made records as Moalim. So we have these records in circulation, but then you now have this ability with your turntables to start doing remixes and introduce these same records to a different audience,
Mm-hmm.
or reintroduce them to the same audience.
Mm-hmm.
And you also then have, you know, this is something we did with the Groovalados a few years back. When we were having trouble getting bookings in places,
Mm-hmm.
we created a street corner tour, pop-up street corner tour, where we would hit street corners all throughout New England. We would pop up and we would end up doing our end up just doing a concert right out in the middle of the street. And began to find one of the funny things was we made more money in our tip bucket than we'd make at the end of the night playing a bar.
It's
So it
true.
was sort of like we stopped playing bars. We just started doing the streets. And that was what led to us getting the initial 4 Grammy nominations, were people who heard us on the street from the Recording Academy.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, this band deserves a shot. You know, they're buying our album from us on the street. And realizing, okay, this is about. And when Zig told me he wanted to get into the music business, the first thing I did was introduce him to the concept of busking. And I said, this is how you develop your audience right here, because it's that direct connection
Yeah.
between the music, the artist, and the audience. And the absolute appreciation is going to be from this direct audience, not from any kind of promo, marketing, or what have you that you do.
Mm-hmm.
So with the same sort of energy, not to mention now equipment's a whole lot more portable. One of the things we came to realize with Wamptronica was, aside from doing our sort of stationary dance party, because we've sort of taken over New Bedford as our city,
Mhm.
We do an underground dance party in New Bedford every month on the third Saturday called the Thumpin' Soul Session.
Yeah.
But then we started out putting out original house music, and we were took that same idea with the Groovalados and started doing pop-up dance parties called the Session,
Mhm.
where with a solar generator, um, a sound system that has a subwoofer and speakers built in, our turntables, and an iPad, and we're out there playing house music on a street corner. We're out there playing house music in parks. We're doing house, all over the place. And you've got people who walk by and stay, and they're dancing and they're grooving. And this is also another way to again introduce people to the different music and different artists, because we'll play our music. They're artists, who we're affiliated with. We'll take their record and we'll drop it into house music. And the trajectory with
I
Wamptronica.
think you're breaking up, Morgan.
Oh, all right. You got, is
Okay.
that better?
Yep.
Oh,
Gotcha.
okay. Cool, cool, cool. All right. I was just gonna say, so the trajectory with Wamptronica has been amazing.
Mhm.
Um, in that through doing the pop-up dance parties, getting that sound out there, getting that vibe out there.
Yeah.
Um, but then also we were putting out the things through our own label, Polygroove Records. But then, we talk about house heads don't really grow up, we just get older.
Mhm.
There's a label in New York City called 8 Ball Records. And
Yep.
the first time I was actually introduced to 8 Ball Records was back in 1993. Now, I used to hang out at a club in New York called Giant Step. And one of the DJs at Giant Step was a dude named Jazzy Nice, who used to slip my demo tapes into the mix at
Mhm.
because I was doing, more like a jazzy kind of house back then.
Right.
And he took me to 8 Ball Records, which was an actual record store, and introduced me to the folks there. And we talked back and forth. And it was gonna go somewhere, and it ended up just not going anywhere because musically I kind of went in a different direction, different category. That was when I
Mhm.
started to go more into my actual jazz type stuff. And it was the funny thing of on Facebook, as I'm just sending out info in the house community about Wamptronica, I end up connecting with Alex Kaplan. And I'm like, wait, is this the same Alex Kaplan from 8 Ball Records? And it was.
And it was.
And remade that connection of, I met you back in 93 with DJ Jazzy Nice. And that was the funny thing was Jazzy Nice sort of just disappeared around 2003. Like,
Right.
nobody heard from him, saw him, or anything. So he was like, "Have you heard from Jazzy?" I said, "I haven't seen my man since 2003." And he's like, "That's what everybody says." But
Yeah.
it was the funny vetting of that where he was like, "Okay, we really did meet back in the day."
Right.
And so I shared with him some of the stuff that we were putting out on Polygroove. And from that, he said, "Well, you down to try to do a remix or some remixes?" And I was like, "Yeah, send me something." So he had a record called "You Don't Have to Worry" that was like, and I remembered it from the '90s. It was by Fonda Ray, and if folks don't know or remember who Fonda Ray is, "Over Like a Fat Rat" from the 1980s was her
Mhm.
record, which of course ends up being sampled into Eric B for President. The bass line, is the bass line from "Over Like a Fat Rat."
Wow.
It was this Fonda Ray record, and so we threw a Wamptronica remix on it, and it's been one of their top releases. That remix. So along with that, we've now actually put out full Wamptronica. We're putting out full Wamptronica records through them. So we kind of like have, I guess you could say, deals with two different labels at the same time.
That's so great.
But doing
Congrats.
remixes and doing projects with other artists. We've got some remixes coming out with well, not remixes. We got some original pieces coming out with one of the singers of the region, a crooner by the name of Naval Chops Turner. People
Okay.
people around Providence and Boston and so forth know Chops really well.
Mhm.
And
I remember
one,
his last project that he
yeah,
was
get
working on.
we did get together with him.
Yes.
We did a house record with him, and I gotta tell you, it's a banger. So
Yes.
that one is coming out in the near future. We're working with a singer by the name of Reuben Walton, who's more like indie pop, neo soul. But we did a remix with him that Eight Ball's going to be putting out.
Oh, that's awesome. So there
So
is still an 8 Ball record, still.
they're now digital as opposed to vinyl, but
Okay.
there is still an Eight Ball, and they're still doing New York House.
Wow. And I mean, again, that like, I just feel like, when you think about Grateful Dead and you think about like these legendary bands that have this following, and I want to say cult like following, um,
Mhm.
that is what I feel like house music is. I feel
Oh
like
yeah,
you have to have that sound and understand the experience that it gives you in order to appreciate it. And I think that people who appreciate it, they're loyalists. They're people who will support and, come out and just be a part of the movement. And I
oh
think that
yeah,
you guys are building something so great. Um and I know, like you said, in regards to like playing on street corners and, just teaching Zig the game and how, from the beginning, this is if you want to gain real notoriety and real, organic, you know, feedback, you go to the streets.
Mhm.
And you have been a pillar of that in this last year, I want to say, because every time I see you playing, it's somewhere different. It's somewhere where I'm like, they got in there. Oh my God. Like, so now this past summer, you were on Uncommon stage in the Boston Commons,
Oh yeah,
um, also a
and,
part of the Jazz Festival.
oh yeah.
And again, this is not your first time as far as the Jazz Festival, I know, but what's that been like for you in regards to being a part of those communities?
Well, love the Jazz Festival. We've been playing. We've been part of the Jazz Festival since the Boston Jazz Fest since 2014,
Yep.
and that was when Zig was 11. He was one of the headliners
Yeah.
as featured jazz drummer,
Yep.
and so that's been part of his. In fact, it's really funny because Bonnie Johnson, who's on WCIN out there in Worcester,
Mhm.
also talks about watching him grow up.
Yeah. Right.
From the 9 year old hanging out with the band to the 11 year old doing his own feature to now. This year, this year he was one of the headlining featured artists. He did the Saturday show.
He reminds me how old I am. Like that.
Yeah.
I told him, I'm like, listen, Zig, like you got to stop growing up because now I realize how old I am looking at you. And
It's the
hold
thing.
on, I seen you with your shirt off. Like, hold on, brother. Like, we're not going there. Like, so again, it was so surreal. It was so surreal.
it I mean it's been a fun ride, and it's part of it. The joy of it has been showing him how to do it on your own terms.
Yeah.
Because I remember he's been making, I should say, that transition from, I would say, hip hop to alt hip hop to now he's more almost alternative rock, really.
Yeah.
When you listen to what a lot of the stuff he's doing, and the fact that um, by showing him how to do it on your own terms, you have so many people who are like, okay, I'm a hip hop artist, and they have to think of everything, and everything is based on hip hop. And with him, it's more about what's the beat that's just making me get lit, and I can go out there and make the audience get hyped with me.
Right.
And one of the fun things is watching him hype the audience, and I'm like, oh wow, I've raised a rock star, you know, watching dude rip his shirt off and jump up on tables, but not just having him rip his shirt off and jump up on tables, but watching this audience, and I have to say, I have to say, dude is either mad humble or mad clueless, because I'm watching him at shows and I'm watching all these little girls looking at him. When I'm saying little girls, of course, they're in their 20s and 30s. I'm
Right.
like, all these little girls looking at him, and he's like completely oblivious. He is completely oblivious.
He's just humble and he's just again, he has grown into a beautiful swan.
Oh
Um
yeah.
and that for me was like, wow, like you just never know what we are going to become.
Hmm.
But I think Zig has always been a star in his own right, and he's
Oh
always
yeah.
been very smart and very knowledgeable because of you, because of his surroundings, because of his elders, and he's taken that in. Because even he said something to me about, breathing exercises that he did with your mom. Um,
Hmm.
and how he's, learned to, just do different things because of you guys. And that, for me, I think the structure, the balance, and understanding, like you said, what to take from it and make it your own. He's doing that so flawlessly. I'm like, oh my god! Like, again, it's amazing to see that. It is.
It's fun to watch.
Yeah, it definitely is. And again, it gives me the younger version of you again, because again, I met you in what, your 20s.
Hmm.
So you're, like, that for me is like, I'm like, he looks so much like his dad. Like, it's
A taller version.
unbelievable. Yeah, taller version though. But maybe you shrunk a little bit. Who knows?
Nah, he's a taller version. I've been 5'10" all these years. My boy is 6'3". So yeah. So yeah, nah.
Wait, they're like, wait, that's Little Morgan or Big Morgan? Wait a minute.
I'm just like, well, I'll accept being called Little Morgan. That's all right. But he but he has dropped the name Morgan pretty much. So
He has.
yeah.
Okay.
He's like, only call me that on a paycheck. But-
Okay. I never heard anyone call him that. And that's the funny thing. I'm like, wait, is his name Morgan? It is, but he's never been called
he's like he's like, unless you're giving me a paycheck, yeah, call me Zig.
that.
And only call me that on the paycheck. I'm like, I hear you.
Okay. So tell me what's next for Wamptronica. What are you guys planning for this fourth quarter?
We've got a couple more singles dropping, a couple more pieces. We're also going to do things that are a little more radio length because, I'm an old house head. So doing records that are like 8 to 12 to 20 minutes long are the norm for me. And I'm finding out, oh, wow, people have a really, even house music, people have a short attention span now. All right, fine. Three and 4 minute records. All right, great. If that's really what works for you. But, so we're working on that. We're working on basically sort of like some rare groove breakbeat records that'll be
Okay.
coming out. We've got some, as I said, productions and remixes coming out with a bunch of different artists. We're going to keep on with our pop-up dance music tours. We're going to keep up with our underground party in New Bedford. And it's really just sort of expanding. And one of the things that we're also going to start doing probably in the next year or two, we're very interested in working with what you call immersive sound experiences,
Okay.
where we would deal with house music, but also deal with video, but at the same time deal with sort of like 3D tactile environmental, just to give people that full experience and then make it something that could be set up in an art gallery or set up in a museum or could even be set up in the lobby of a building. But just to sort of make it that vibe, like I said, that
Yeah.
vibe feeling, that sort of renewal, regeneration.
Yeah. And I think that would be great, like, because I even, when you started to say that, I'm thinking about like virtual reality type,
Yeah, yeah.
even, putting headphones on and it just having like a silent type techno party. You know what I'm saying? Like, that would be pretty dope because,
Stuff like that as well.
yeah. And even, in the setting of an art gallery, that would be really a collective and something to
Yeah.
think about because, again, it's not something that you normally see, and we kind of have to push the button a little bit, you know what I'm saying, and be creative. I think techno and, house music is very creative. It's very diverse,
Oh
so you
yeah.
have to give so many different elements and, bring it up a little bit, bring it down a little bit, and, find that medium. So
Put it together. Plus, what I've noticed is people don't go out like they used to.
no.
And the really funny thing is club culture is very different.
Hmm.
It's a bunch of people hanging around taking pictures of themselves.
Yeah.
Here I am in the bar having a good time. Here I am in the bar not having a good time. Here I am in the bar posing for a photo to pretend that I'm having a good time. Here I am with my friends in the bar. We're all too high to have a good time. This is what this is what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And some of it is people now, because of the fact that everything ends up being photographed or videotaped, people are like insecure and don't want to actually have a good time because somebody might catch them having a good time and use that as like fodder to clown them.
Yeah.
And what one of the things that we're trying to do is just sort of bring the vibe back of let it go and enjoy. You
Yeah.
think about you think about the fact that we go to our average club, and I'm even thinking back in the 80s and 90s. You couldn't just go to a club and dance. You had to do whatever the latest dance was. You had to
Right.
do the Pee Wee Herman, the WAP, the Cabbage Patch, the Running Man, you know, or you felt like an idiot if you couldn't get out there and do that, or if you couldn't get out there and do the Roger Rabbit or do the this or the that. And it's like, damn, just get out on the damn dance floor and dance. Just enjoy yourself. Just feel the beat. Just ride with that. Again, that was the freedom that house music provided that
Yeah.
you didn't get with the straight up forms.
I remember
So
going to Cambridge to like Harvard Square and like different places like that where I would see like just house music, in
yeah,
places and like just the level of freedom and you
yeah,
know like just the ability to be free and just dance and not be looked at as, oh, she's doing something crazy, or you know what I mean. It's just like, no, I'm having a good time, I'm jumping around. um, and a lot of my friends now, I find they use house music to work out.
yeah.
It's a good workout piece, is what I'm finding. Is that
Oh yeah,
people, a lot of people who are, knowers of house music, they gravitate towards that when they want to find something to work out to or to
yeah,
get pumped up to. Like that's, and again, that's the energy you want. That's the energy that you want to feel. And I was just talking to another artist about that today. Just that feel good music, that real sound, and you guys are bringing that.
yeah.
Wamptronica is bringing that. So you told me there are how many members of Wamptronica right now?
Right now we have about 7 members.
7 members. Okay.
And one of the fun things is one night Wamptronica was playing 3 different places at the same time.
Wow.
I'm like, wow, we're like the MF Doom of hip hop. Well, no, not MF Doom of house music. What am I saying? We're like the MF Doom of house music because it was sort of like you had one Wamptronica member as Wamptronica at one spot, another Wamptronica member as Wamptronica at another spot, and then a third member of Wamptronica at another spot. And so we had 3 Wamptronica shows going on at the exact same time.
That's so dope.
And that was one of the fun things was last night. Um, I had a show. Well, I'll talk a lot. We can talk about that show next month, but
Okay.
but but I had a show in Cambridge, and when I got out of it, I was able to jump across town because Zig was doing a Wamptronica show at the North American Indian Council of Boston on ACOB
Mhm.
down in Jamaica Plain. So I got from Cambridge to Jamaica Plain, parked the car, and I'm like, okay, I got a couple of minutes to get in there before he's supposed to go on. And the funny thing was walking in the building and then hearing the very familiar conga opening to our record Just Is,
Ah,
the one of the Wamptronica records.
uh-huh.
And so, but the funny thing is I'm walking in, and again, this is the Native American building. You're seeing all of these indigenous folk dancing either out on the dance floor or wherever they were standing when that beat hit them. And I'm saying, elders who walk with canes
Yeah. Dancing.
and little kids, and the whole range, just feeling that vibe and grooving out and dancing to the record. It's like that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. So what do you want to be remembered for the most in regards to Wamptronica and um what you guys are trying to create in this music business industry?
I guess it comes down to my name. I want to be remembered as the teacher.
Nope, that's right. That's a good one. That's a good one because again, I like I said, it's never out of I don't even want to say how long I've known you, but you've always been a teacher. You've always been a teacher.
I had a black beard when you met me. I'll put it
Yeah, let's say that.
like
Let's say that. Um,
that.
I don't even know if you had a beard. Wait, you did. You kind of had like a goatee thing going on. It wasn't as thick as this one.
No, no.
But you were still wise at that point, I think. When I met you at 27, 28, I think you were still that person. You were my teacher. You were my theater teacher. Like,
Yeah.
let's be honest here. You know what I mean? But you also had so much knowledge outside of that, and you gave that to your students, and like I can still see the influence in me from you from that long ago, and so
Mhm.
many other peers of mine that can still go back to our teachings and say Morgan taught us that, Marlene taught us that, and it's like, and it's still so, it's embedded, you know what I'm saying? So I think
Mhm.
that's a great teacher. I think that's a teacher, that was given a gift, and you have been able to resonate with so many people in the world. And your legacy is going to forever live on through me, through people like me that have been in your classes and have witnessed just the levels of education that you've given. And sometimes we might not understand it at first. I'm sometimes I got to see it to believe it, and
Mhm.
you know this about me. So it's like, then I'll come back to you and say, you were right. Everything you said happened exactly how you said it. So what does that feel like to you? Like when people come back to you and say, you were right.
It's sometimes it's a good feeling, and sometimes it's a not so good feeling. Because sometimes you don't want to be right. You want to be okay. I misjudged this person, or I misjudged this experience, and sometimes it's like, nah, I called that. I pretty much
Yeah.
call that as it goes. But one of the it's funny when you're talking about Fenway, and I look at when I was at Fenway, I still had a certain naivete. Um, when I what I thought Fenway was true when it came to one of the directors. Remember, we had co-directors,
Yeah. Linda.
and the problem was that wasn't the actual agenda.
Right. I remember that.
Um, I came with a philosophy of you work with somebody and you look at what their gifts are and you enhance those gifts. You look at what they're coming from culturally, what they're coming from socially. And what we do is we learn how to build that. And that was very much the philosophy of Dr. Nathan.
Mhm.
Was unfortunately the other philosophy was what I would call eugenics, where let's first of all teach you that the proper way is the white way, the white European way. And so it's basically it's funny because when in Frantz Fanon in his book Black Skin White Mask,
Mhm.
he talks about the difference between being a French speaking African in a or an African in a French colony and trying to be a black Frenchman.
Hmm.
And the fact that you had so many people who of Martinique who were of the upper, the upper economic, socioeconomic class going to France. And the idea was that their parents were trying to turn them into French ladies and gentlemen. Whereas you had some who were more like, no, this is who we are, this is our culture, and I just happen to speak French.
Right.
Well, here again, that was where the struggle line sort of became. And unfortunately, my approach to teaching was not about trying to turn you into white people
Mhm.
or or even to admire per
Like
se.
you still get, like, again, like that was the first time I ever learned anything as far as about, 5 percenters, and just things that you wisdom, knowledge, and understanding and the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is things that you taught me. And later on, there were people that I've crossed paths with that had the same like minds and were conscious minded people. And you taught me conscious minded.
Mm-hmm.
That was something, again, like that helped me to understand this life differently than I think a lot of my peers that never got your teachings, that never really understood, that we're all somewhat beings, as far as cosmetic beings, and we're all somewhat spirits in our own way,
Mm-hmm.
um, even down to our play and understanding what you were trying to teach us within that. That still resonates with me. I still go back to that sometimes, and I think about the different characters and the way you interpreted all these different people and the people that you got to play the different characters, and why you got to play, why you wanted them to play those certain parts. Um, it was all very directional, in
Mm-hmm.
a lot of ways, and it made me understand that, there's great people in this world that really want to give you the knowledge and the seeds. And you planted so many seeds, in me and so many other peers, that, I just look back at, and I think about, and I'm like, if we didn't have him, if we didn't know how to be ourselves and knowledge of self and understanding, just these different elements, of education, we may have never even grown or evolved, um, because of that. And like you said, it's teaching us to be a certain way that is not us, but it also is kind of shadowing who we are, and you didn't
Mm-hmm.
allow us to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I felt like, I look at now today how we have a lot of schools who are, culture driven. I have nieces that are predominantly in a black school in Cambridge. um,
Mm-hmm.
and I look Benjamin Banneker, and I look at that and I said, that is like beautiful, because my sister wanted to make sure that these her kids went to school with kids who looked like them and
Mm-hmm.
could learn on the same dynamic, that, we're not being segregated or we're not being discriminated against because of our color or because of our zip code. And that was something that people didn't understand, is that your zip code ultimately can determine your child's education. And that was something that you taught me.
Mm-hmm.
So that for me is like, I don't think that anyone else in regards to my teachings has given me that type of wisdom or that knowledge. And I think that that was important, that it changed my perception on a lot of things and how I wanted to live my life.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
that's neither here nor there, and you're still doing it. I mean, you went on to become a professor. So we're going to talk about that on our interview. um and you've just built so many different things. So tell me now, because I know you have how many businesses that you're running currently. Like, I can't even go down, the different LLCs and entities that you have associated with, polyphonic records. Like, every time I turn around, it's something different. It's something new. So tell me everything
Well,
right
one thing I did was I ended up consolidating
now.
a lot
Okay.
of it because the bookkeeping alone was what was doing me in. So I have Polyphonic Studios LLC.
Yeah.
Under that corp, under that corporate structure, we have Polygroove Records.
Okay.
I have my publishing company, Burgundy Street Music.
Yeah.
We have Zig's publishing company, Ahana Mosque Music.
Yeah.
And then under the LLC is where we basically put all of our primary acts. So the Groovalatos are actually Polyphonic Studios LLC DBA, the Groovalatos,
Yeah.
or DBA, the ZYG 808,
Wow.
or DBA, the Funky Professor. And we have a nonprofit that is affiliated with us, but is a separate entity for a number of reasons, and that's actually the older of the companies, Oversoul Theater Collective,
Yeah.
which actually started back in '94.
Okay.
but still have that. And the thing is, I have to say a remarkable team behind me.
Yeah.
That's one of the big things that I should say I learned is that it's about who you have with you. So I have one of the best engineers in the business, Chuck V,
Yep.
helping me run Polyphonic Studio, and of course he trained Zig, who's coming up under his own as an engineer and producer.
Yep.
So that's the entity there. With Oversoul Theater Collective, we have a wonderful team of people, and always have.
Mhm.
With Polygroove Records, big shout out to Rhea Ramos because she's sort of been the I should taken the lead with that.
Yep.
And in terms of upping the profile, a lot
Yeah.
of that is the work that she's been doing behind the scenes. So but it's like it was a teamwork makes the dream work. Well, yeah.
Yeah. You have to, you have to find the right people. You have to find
Oh
what
yeah.
works, and also, people who believe in what you're doing before it takes off.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I think that's important. I think that, getting those type of people who understand that, we have to start from the bottom. We have to be, the face of the company. We have to be everything. You know what I'm saying? And it's blood,
Mm.
sweat, and tears before it becomes, a great thing. And
Oh yeah.
just watching that, you take something that you had in your head that you said, listen, this is going to work. And here we are, 5 years later, and it's working.
Oh yeah.
And you're building and you're capitalizing and you're being, um, played everywhere. Like where was your last show just recently?
Let's see. Well, oh, had a bunch of them.
I know.
Let's see. Wednesday night, I was at Hibernian Hall in Nubian Square in Roxbury.
Yep.
And then Thursday night, second Thursday night, I host a live jam session. It's like a jam session workshop
Okay.
for jazz, blues, and soul players. And I do that Thursday night in New Bedford at the Underground Railroad Cafe.
Yep. And I
Which,
know you love the Underground Railroad Cafe because you said
oh,
it's your own.
oh yeah, that's become the home for Oversoul Theater Collective in New Bedford. But why I also love it is because it actually was a way station on the Underground Railroad. It
Wow.
it had tunnels that led to the harbor
Wow.
running through their basement, and they back in the day were both smuggling goods and quote unquote fugitive slaves.
Yes.
So that whole vibe and energy is why I love being in that building because of the place that
The
it holds in
history.
history, that it
Yeah.
holds in the New Bedford history and Black history across the
Yeah.
board. But
That's dope. I definitely have to come check it out. I have to come support you guys. So definitely keep me in the loop. Let me know when the next show is. I'm definitely gonna make it my business to come out and support you
uh,
guys.
October 19th, house music all night long.
October 19th, I'll be leaving. I
Oh
won't
man.
be
Well,
here. The
third
next
Saturday
one,
third Saturday of every month.
third Saturday. Okay.
Uh, third Saturday. The host DJ from Wamptronica that night is going to actually be Future Active,
Okay.
um, because Zig has a gig in New Hampshire and I have a gig in Maryland
Okay.
in November. But we're not doing December just because it's so close to the holiday.
Holiday. Yeah.
But we'll start back up in January.
Okay.
But you were asking about gigs. So then, like I said, Thursday I had the thing at the Underground Railroad Cafe. Friday night I was at the Blue Room in Cranston, Rhode Island,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
then Saturday night I was at Club Passim in Cambridge,
Okay. So
and
tell me,
then
what has been your best performance place this year?
I can't zero in because they've all been interesting gigs and
Okay.
interesting experiences.
Anything memorable from any of them?
All it's gonna sound funny, all of them.
All of them. Okay.
For what well with Wamptronica especially, um yeah, it's just the whole thing of the minute that bass hits or those hand claps hit, and watching people unconsciously drop into the groove and drop into the vibe. And that, that's just been a beautiful experience every place we've gone.
It's like the Grim Reaper, but the music Reaper. It's like
Yeah,
you touch someone's soul and you're like, ah, got him.
gotcha. Gotcha. So it's hard to say, because I'm thinking of in back in June we did an outdoor roller disco.
Hmm.
That was amazing.
Wow.
Suddenly popping up and doing a show in Monty's Park down in New Bedford.
Okay.
That was amazing. And what was really funny was having the New Bedford police show up, and the big thing they're thinking they're going to bust us for is using electricity, and finding out, nah, we got solar generators. We're good.
Wow.
And then not realizing that we know free speech laws in New Bedford.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, we set up our equipment and we're DJing. Oh, well, how many people are you expecting? Whoever shows up.
Right.
Well, how late are you going? Well, according to the city ordinances, we can go until 9 o'clock. So that's pretty much,
What we're doing.
that'll cap our evening. And then it was just sort of like, so now they're just kind of standing there, and they're just kind of standing around, and they're just kind of talking to each other. And then they got in their cars and left. And one of the beautiful things there was watching this group of kids at the wall at Monty's Park, watching this whole thing happen, and just kind of like, wow.
The teacher again, because you
you know,
never know. Those kids might try that one day, and they'll be like, "Well, we know there's some truth to this because we've seen
yeah.
it happen."
Well, one of them actually asked, "Well, how'd you make the cops leave?" I said, "Well, it was like they had no purpose here other than if they wanted to dance to house music, they could have stayed." But the other, okay, another fun experience was in New Bedford. We actually had a float in the Cape Verdean parade
Oh yeah, I seen that. Yep.
in New Bedford, and basically we put Zig and the sound equipment and some of the other members up in the back of a pickup truck, and we just drove the route, and we're blasting. Well, we have a record called Handsome, so
Yep.
now, yeah, I guess you could say that was a favorite moment when you see this whole little row of these kids who are probably like between the ages of 9 and 13, these little boys on the street corner singing along, "I eat that cheesecake in the dark." And I'm like, boy, you don't even know what cheesecake is. What you Well, seeing them, that was
You're
funny. And
breaking
then,
up, Morgan.
oh, all right. Am I back?
They were singing.
The little boys were out there singing, "I eat that cheesecake in the dark," and just sort of like laughing about that. But then the main chorus of the song is, "She only wants it with sativa and tequila because it makes me handsome. It says it makes me handsome." Watching these dudes all dancing to that and singing along to the "because it makes me handsome, she says it makes me handsome," and then having women standing there really hearing the words and dying. So yeah, little magic moments like that when people are reacting to your music that way.
Right.
And what we also did was, because the band Tavares is from New Bedford. In fact, they just named a street in the
Mhm.
South End the Tavares Brothers Way.
Mhm.
But another beautiful part was being able to take their disco records and do remixes of them, and
Yeah.
then blasting the remixes in the parade. So all of a sudden, people are hearing this house beat, and then you're watching the people who are now again in like their 70s and 80s, but we're out in the discos in the early 70s, all of a sudden hear "More Than a Woman," and they're losing their mind. Or "Don't take away the music." Watching people lose their minds as we're remixing Tavares. So that, a lot of that has been sort of like the fun things, playing in the Boston Common.
Yeah.
And again, watching, at the Uncommon stage, and watching people walk by and all of a sudden just drop into the groove.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's hard to say what's been the best memory. They've all
They
been.
all did. Which is great. I mean, I think that's what house music is aimed to do. Is every moment is the best moment.
Oh yeah.
So kudos to you. Any last things you want to say? Any shout outs? Any advice that you would want to give to up and coming artists or people who want to work with you or collab? I have your Instagram scrolling across the screen now. But
Okay.
how can people find you or anything that you want to say before we end tonight?
IG at Wamptronica works, or TikTok at Wamptronica also works.
Okay.
Follow us there, shout us out there.
Yeah.
Um, link tr.ee/Wamptronica is the way to interact with us also on whatever platform you like. And let's see.
For booking.
Last bit of advice. It's a business. Business is commerce. Commerce is the interaction between the commercial entity and the customer. When you're in the music business, that's primarily what it's about. Finding
Mhm.
your audience is also finding your customers. There's no such thing as a ready made audience, there's no such thing as ready made customers. There are just customers who are going to resonate with your product. And it's your job or your manager's job or your promoter's job to find that interactive point between the artist and find between the artist and the audience, because that's going to be the natural organic connection. It's not about how many spins you get on Spotify, it's not about how many spins you get on Apple. It's
That's right.
about how many people get excited when they see your flyer
That's right.
posted on the street corner, or when they see that you're coming to their city. And
Right.
again, it's not about fame and fortune. Nah, that's not going to work. You've got one of the most famous people in music now facing life in prison. So,
Right.
incidentally, yes, I got invited to a party that I didn't go to back in 19 out in Long
Well,
Island.
it's funny you talking about that because I brought that up earlier. We're already past an hour, but we can talk about it next month. Um,
Okay.
but it was definitely something that I wanted to get, my artists and different people that I was interviewing their opinions on this, because I have an opinion and I
When
feel, like
when I tell you I steered clear of the industry,
that was one of the reasons.
and I ain't even know about the baby oil bottles. I honestly just didn't go to that party because I knew some of the people who were going, and I didn't want to be in the same room with.
Well, and it's funny because again, I, it's hard for me because I'm a truth seeker. I'm a person who I don't convict anybody until guilty. You know what I'm saying? And I just feel like Method Man made a good point where he said, don't discredit what he's given to this industry and what he's given to the music world. And I feel that because I feel like Diddy has been a big influence on this culture, and evolving it. And now we're going to discredit that with speculations and things that we don't know to necessarily be true yet.
I'm
Um,
I'm gonna put it
why would
like
you go to jail for baby oil? I mean, that.
I'm gonna put it like this. You're not gonna go to jail for baby oil. You're gonna go to jail for the chemicals that are in the baby oil bottle that are not baby oil.
Mm,
Let us start to look at people's stock portfolios and see who got money in the private prison system. And let's also again look at, we made the move from conscious hip hop to gangster hip hop to hustler player hip hop, which was basically sort of like glorified gangster hip hop.
hmm
And those weren't the narratives that needed to necessarily be told, but those were the narratives that they started telling because we wanted to glamorize criminal behavior so that we could stock the private prisons. So no, I'm not going to
You're
downplay.
breaking up,
All right, how about now?
Morgan.
Hi, can you hear me now? How about now?
Yep, you're back.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I was gonna say,
You
so
wanted to glamorize. We
you
wanted to.
want to glamorize certain, let's say, borderline criminal behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
What you kind of want to do is become the music industry glamour glitz version of like a Nicky Barnes or a Bumpy Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the lifestyle that you start to promote. So no, we're not going to look down on the impact. We're going to examine the impact that somebody had. Why do you glamorize this lifestyle? And is there any correlation between glamorizing this lifestyle and where you've invested your money?
Okay.
So yeah, we can talk about impact on the industry. We can also talk about impact on the Black community.
Right. And I mean, and again, I think that the powers that be, I think that, there were forces bigger than him, bigger than Kanye, bigger than, a lot of these celebrities that have been somewhat defamed, um, because they went against whatever the powers that be wanted them to do or wanted them to be or wanted them to allow. And
But
now we come out with all their secrets and all the, things that can damage and tarnish their relationships and their credibility.
but the powers that be are the ones who put them in that position in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And that's
that
why I say it's bigger than Diddy. It's
so
bigger than
sometimes, well, it's bigger than, but then the thing is when you allow yourself to be the android.
right. And like you said, that's why you never sold your soul. You know what I'm saying? Like there's some people, and I believe he sold his soul, and believe these are the consequences that you face when you do those things. Is you know you think that you're invincible and you think that you're untouchable until you're not,
Hmm?
and they will take it from you just as quick as they gave it to you.
This was
So,
it. Oh, and to speak to the earlier point, no, you're not going to go to jail for baby oil. Like I said, you're going to go to jail for the chemicals that are in the baby oil bottle.
hmm
You're going to go to jail for sex trafficking. You're going to go to jail for sexual assault. You're going to go to jail for RICO charges because you enabled sex trafficking and sexual assault. So these are the things that we're looking at. The baby oil is just sort of like, the media aside. And like I said, for the most part, the media hasn't even come out with the fact that, yeah, that wasn't actually baby oil in those bottles.
right,
And then we're going to have people who are going to vilify Jaguar Wright. Well, guess what? Everything she was saying that everybody said she was crazy about is starting to come out in the open.
yeah.
And then when
But
you
I
have
mean,
her,
we have Corinne Steffens that came out. We have Danny D. Kane, the girl from there, who said, years ago about Diddy. Um,
mm,
and it's just like R. Kelly. I think that people turn, a blind eye to these things when there's money involved, when there's reputation involved, and people. And again, my biggest thing is like, even with Cassie, I felt like you stayed, you know but with this man for how long, and he did these things to you, and you could
it
say that it was not money driven, but I feel like it was money driven in the end. It's like you left, you were gone.
money money plays into it initially, the attraction of money, the attraction of fame, the attraction of power. But let's start to look at the word power.
Mm-hmm.
Nicky Barnes was called Mr. Untouchable, not because he hadn't committed crimes, but because he had cops on the payroll. If you're able to buy your way out of being arrested, if you're able to buy your way out of these various um, situations, if you have power and control, let's face it, if you are in the streets, you can make people disappear.
Mm-hmm.
So when people say, oh, well, how come people didn't say anything or how come people didn't do anything? Okay, let's move it away from Mr. Combs to let's look at some of the gangsters in Boston whose names we're not even going to say because they're still living.
I'm like, you gonna start saying names? Hold on.
No, no, no. I'm not going to say. I'm not going to start saying names. But that's exactly the point that I'm making. When people say, "Well, how come they didn't speak up?" Well, okay, how come we're not saying names right now?
Right.
We're not doing anything illegal, but we're not saying names
The code
about
of
people.
silence, in a
It's
way.
not the code of silence. If I say something, I might die. If I
Right.
say something, I might disappear. If I say something, people around me might disappear. you know, this now came forward with Cass's father when she's locked in a car and she calls her dad, and her dad drives in to find him and is accosted by his people who tell her father straight up, we can make people disappear.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, yeah, it's a survival instinct that keep people from talking
Hmm.
because the consequences reach beyond the abilities of law enforcement.
Yeah. And I
You
think
know,
he's
you,
gotten away with so many different things, that eventually you get sloppy. Eventually, just like R. Kelly, just like, a lot of these celebrities, it's like once you get to that level of I beat this, or even Aaron Hernandez, he was another one who I think power, money, allowed him to think that he was invincible until he wasn't, until he got so messy and so careless that it was ultimately his demise, and it was his own fault for being too cocky, for just thinking that he was that person that could not be touched. And I found that with Diddy too, in a lot of ways. Like, we all knew that, he had a dark past, you know what I'm saying, or some type of secrets. There were plenty of speculations, there were plenty of rumors, there were plenty of things that, happened, but what did it take for it to finally come out? You know what I'm saying? Like, was he ready to go on his own journey? Was he ready to, like, and that's what I find. Like, we look at Michael Jackson, we look at Prince, we look at these people, Bill Cosby, who, eventually they were ready to go out on their own and go against the powers that be. And then this
well,
happened.
here comes another way to also consider it. Were they going out on their own because of some sense of rugged individualism, or were they going out on their own because they knew their days were numbered?
Hmm, that's a good one. I
You
have
know,
to get
you all of a sudden going to turn into a black nationalist.
that right.
You know, all this time you've been part
Right.
an adamant part of the system, and you all of the, you've been a part of the system to the point where you've been a detriment
Yeah.
to your own community,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden I'm a black man who wants to be an independent business black man and wants to, and and it's sort of like, so is it a matter of, oh, we're going to shut you down because you're trying to be indie, or you trying to be indie because we about to shut you down?
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. And I think even Kanye, I feel like he was a flip flopper. He was a person who, was all for the plague and, being a part of whatever, plan that was going on. I'll sell my soul, do whatever. But as soon as it didn't go his way, and also his own mental health, it then bursted into this, pillar of just so much stuff that you were like, what is going on with Kanye? Like, he seems delusional, he seems crazy, but he's not. He's really saying what he hadn't said before and what he was hiding, I think, in a lot of ways. Like, where you're just like, well, if you knew all this, why were you a part of it? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is where I just feel like you sell your soul. You become a, a puppet in the play, and they play you how they want. Now we don't even hear from Kanye. Now he's overseas somewhere. And why is it that every time an artist gets, defamed in the United States, they go to Europe? Like,
Well,
it's,
you go to where there's no extradition.
yeah, that true.
Well, let's look at Russell Simmons, no extradition.
Yeah,
Steve Harvey, no extradition.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As
And
always, and we could talk for hours, like
yeah,
me and you have that conversation where we can just talk for hours and trade ideas and theories and things like that. And you've taught me to be that person, to just think the what if, what, when, and how, and why. um and it's always challenging because you could have all these different reasons, and some of them may be very true, but it's until we know the truth, can we say it's the truth,
no,
you know
we don't know for sure.
Oh,
Things we know for sure. Sean Combs's dad was part of the old school Harlem underworld. He was trying to become in with the Nicky
Nicky
Barnes and
Barnes.
Frank
Yep.
Lucases of Harlem,
Yep.
and ended up being a liability.
Yeah.
And so we know these, we know these things because when he started to come up in the music scene, in the Harlem scene, because let us not forget the City College basketball game,
Hmm.
which was actually how his name really became big in New York. Was that basketball game where all of those phony tickets were printed, and it ended up becoming a stampede where people got killed.
Wow.
And that was the original, that was the original thing on Puff Daddy's name. In that was really like that was his introduction to mainstream. Now, we can wind back to, I remember going to parties at homecoming at Howard that were thrown by a guy named Puff Daddy, and I was like, all right, didn't know. And of course, there was no baby oil at those parties. It was just, lot of New York style hip hop, and
But
you know,
it's funny to see him transition his name from Puff Daddy to Diddy to Brother Love. And I tell people that's an identity crisis thing for me. Like, where he's constantly changed his name. And I think when I seen the Brother Love, I was like, yeah, because he got some skeletons that he's trying to, dig a hole for and basically put that to rest and say, I'm not that Diddy guy anymore. I'm not that Puff Daddy anymore. I'm now all about the love, like,
well, I mean, I can't knock that because it is sometimes it's about evolution.
right.
Because you were George Clinton and you were Dr. Funkenstein and you were the Atomic Dog, and it's like, but all of these names still apply, and it's just that these were different elements of his growth,
Of
of
his
his
growth.
change. What we're looking at there is, like you said, somebody who's basically trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah. Because I felt that then when he was riding around LA and they said he had lost his mind and he wasn't right. I'm like, something is coming out. Like, Diddy is going on he's going on his demise. Like, there is going to be something that's going to come out and it's going to shock the world. And
Mhm.
here we are, how many years later from that ride, that I remember him, riding around in LA and they was like, he changed his name to Brother Love. I was like, yeah, no. Anytime you see that type of transition from a person who, is known to be the guy, the man of the hour, and just that guy, and he changes his name to Brother Love, like,
Yep.
that for me was like, yeah, there's something deep dark that is going to come out. And again, nothing surprises me when it comes to this industry and how people portray themselves behind closed doors, or how they're what they do behind closed doors, because just it's just the way of the world. It's just people are curious, people will get downright gritty, and just do the craziest things because, oh, I did something that nobody else has ever done before, or I'm doing things, I'm throwing these type of freak off parties, and people love his parties. It's like everybody was a part of it until it came out, you know what I mean?
Well, this I did this one on TikTok because they were trying to
Okay.
compare the freak off parties to Hugh Hefner.
Yep.
And I said, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
You went to a Hugh Hefner party knowing that it was an orgy,
That's right.
that it was basically going to be a bunch of sex, alcohol, and drugs. You knew this about it. Was, nobody went to a Hugh Hefner party thinking, oh, I might get a record deal, or I might do this, I might do that. You
Right.
were going to you were going to an orgy, and you knew you were going to an orgy.
Right.
There are people who went to the Diddy parties thinking they're going to meet producers, thinking that they're going to, this is going to be a foot in the industry, thinking X, Y, and Z, and we're not going to attend an orgy.
Yep.
And you have people, who are, when you realize they're talking about the trafficking aspect, and the cages found in the tunnels under his house. Again, these are the things that he's going to jail about.
Yeah.
The baby oil is something people laugh about, but it's like you look at the very, very, very real issues: trafficking, kidnapping.
And I
Um,
think, honestly, like, I felt like he's a prime target in regards to cartels and people like that, because he has yachts, he has jets. And who's to say he wasn't smuggling some type of illegal substances or chemicals, or, had some type of, weapons, things like that? Because that's what they said basically raided his house. It wasn't just, FBI, it was like Secret Service, like it was like high security, people. And that for me means it's bigger than just sex and regular
Yeah.
drugs. Um,
That that and feds don't raid your house, and feds don't come take you away unless they actually got something.
right. That's right.
You know,
So
they have
this
to
is gonna be.
actually.
I just feel like it's never like safe in our culture of music and artists that nobody is untouchable. I feel like you get to a certain level of success and now you become the target. Now you become the target of scrutiny, and it's hard to keep yourself out of that light. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be famous, if you want to be popular, if you want to be known. Um
It depends on how and where you move.
yeah.
You have somebody like a Byron Allen,
Mhm.
who's, went from being one of the co-hosts on Real People to then sort of having a late night talk show to now being a media mogul, and he was able to slip through and do all of these things. And it's sort of like he doesn't have dirt on his name, he doesn't have all of that. So
But
it,
it's all
it's
about what intrigues you too, what you're driven by. If you're
Mhm.
driven by money, power, clothes, materialistic things, then that is ultimately what you would tell me is the root of evil. You know what I'm saying? Money and,
it's
greed and, just all that. Is just
excess.
gonna it's
It's excess. It's about
it's
excess.
yes. And in the turn of that, you're gonna dance with the devil and you're gonna deal with the devilish lifestyle. So
Hmm.
that's where it's like you play with, you play in the dirt, you're gonna get dirty.
Well, well, again, what it comes down to, again, the comparative with Hefner versus Combs. What it really comes down to is consent versus non-consent.
Right.
What happens between consenting adults is their own thing to reconcile. The evil is the fact that, let's face it, rape is not about sex, it's about
Power.
power.
That's right.
That it's about power and dominance.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that becomes a recurring discussion about what happens with the Diddy parties.
Yep.
So it's sort of like that is the evil piece, not, and this is the funny thing is it what happened, it's like, okay, so these two men did what two men according to the Bible aren't supposed to do. Well, guess what? It happened between two consenting adults.
Mm-hmm.
But then when one is 30 and the other one is 13, there's a big problem there.
Right. Absolutely.
And the rampant construct of homophobia in the black community has people not being able to separate that. No, it's not that it was homosexual activity, it's that it was non-consensual.
That's right. And that's the big thing. Because if you're
Yeah.
brought somewhere under the speculation of something different, and that is not what the purpose or the intentions were, and you were unaware, then that's total deceit. That's,
This
you
is it.
know you just that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? And I've heard girls say that, like, where they've been in situations with celebrities, and they've been, in a situation where, they bring them to a hotel room and they're like, listen, if you ain't trying to do this, then you need to leave,
Mhm.
like, and just straight up kicking girls out because, oh, you're not trying to get down with the program, then you gotta go. You know what I'm
but
saying?
but the true problem is I know the situations where it was basically, well, if you're trying to get out of here alive,
Right.
that, because even with that, as unpleasant as it is, well, you got to leave. Well, okay, but you're being given a choice.
Right.
They're the people who get in that situation and do not have a choice,
Right. Absolutely.
or the choice. It's called duress.
Hmm.
Do this or die. Do this or be injured.
Yeah. Which is
That's where there's
crazy.
a problem.
And I think Diddy held that power. He had people that were willing to do whatever it took around him. A couple of his bodyguards even talk about that, the things that they witnessed and seen. So it's definitely some truth. It's definitely, going to come out. And I can't wait to see what is uncovered on our before our next interview. So we'll
Well,
stay
well, I, well, one joke I gotta one not joke, but thing I gotta speak on. We were talking about when Jaguar Wright came out with that thing about Christopher Williams.
Uh-huh.
Christopher Williams is from my old neighborhood.
I know, right?
So I was sitting there, and it was like a friend of mine because he apparently did Bronx Week, and a friend of
Uh-huh.
mine was there and posted pictures of Christopher Williams, and I just commented for a demo, nigga. Like, and yes, I'm sorry. It's become a wonderful thing with Zig and I because sometimes Zig will just suddenly come out and say, "For a demo," and I'm like, "For a demo."
What demo?
That and people didn't understand. I was posting cryptic stuff on Facebook because I was like, Carl Thomas got a whole album deal. Dot dot dot.
That's right. It's true.
And then the other one is, so let's get this straight. Jamie Foxx was going to Diddy parties, and the only thing he saw wrong was that he was spending too much on food. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Like, listen, it's scary. It's scary, but it's always a pleasure. I don't want it to go over too much because it's already 1 hour and a half.
Oh, damn.
So I'm not going to be able to load the whole thing to social media probably, but
Oh, happy editing.
I know. Happy editing. Here I go. You have a great night. We'll see you next month.
Actually, you use some of the other clips as like coming attraction type, commercial video or whatever.
Yeah, I got you.
All right, hon.
All right.
Thank you
have
so
a good
much.
night. Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.